Hello, welcome everyone to the webinar. How are you? Please tell me in the chat where you're from today. I can't see you, but it would be great to know where you are logging in from. So I will give everyone a little bit of time to just get into the session and get ready. And I'll quickly introduce myself. So my name is Annalie. I work for the mentor team here at CareerFoundry. So I help with the recruitment and training and management of all the mentors and tutors. Hi, Julia. So we've got someone from Oregon and USA. Obviously, use this chat moving forward. You can ask any question you have for Dana and Humera. Got people from Germany, Tel Aviv. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for writing in the chat. So today I'm going to be talking to Dana and Humera. They are a mentor-tutor pair teaching the data course with us here at CareerFoundry. So we're going to go over a bunch of different topics, their experiences, also just the industry itself. So maybe before we get started, if you could both introduce yourselves. So Dana, if you want to go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thing is, this is one of the first ones that is for data, right, Annalie?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I should have said, Dana, I guess data is one of our brand new courses, or our newest course. And so this is why it's extra exciting that we have you both here today to talk about this course.
Yes, it's really great to be here today. So I'm Dana, and I'm a tutor at CareerFoundry. But I actually started out as a course content writer for the data immersion program. And actually, as a few months now, I've also been a course reviewer. So that's kind of like a lot of things at CareerFoundry happening for me. But yeah, a little bit about me. I am from Bulgaria. I am based in Bulgaria. I've lived in Austria for quite a long time and also in the UK. And I actually don't have a degree in software engineering, IT, or math or anything. I've actually studied sociology and statistics. But things sort of happened this way for me that I started digging into statistics quite much. And this led me to data science and working in the industry in a few fields, and then actually eventually to tutoring analytics.
Nice, thank you. Humera, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yep, thank you very much, Annalie, and hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar again. It's nice to have you here, although we cannot see you directly, but we are getting your messages. So, as I said, I'm Humera. And I like to introduce myself as a teacher at heart. So I did computer engineering, graduated from my home university in Pakistan almost 20 years ago. And right after graduation, started teaching. So stayed in the academia for almost 12 years and did my PhD in computer vision and worked a lot on machine learning during that. And then afterwards, when I moved to Germany, which is kind of my second home, been here for almost 12 years now. And this is where I started, moved from academia to the industry and working in the industry for past 7 years on big data and messing around with data actually. So with CareerFoundry, I am a mentor here, and with CareerFoundry, I actually found my long lost passion of being a teacher. So that's me again in my teaching mode. So thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much. And it's so nice to have you both here together because you actually are a mentor-tutor pair. So that means that you will work with students basically from start to finish. So it's nice that you can both talk about your experiences together as well. So maybe we'll start firstly by talking about what the role of a tutor actually entails. So, the day-to-day role, like what your responsibilities are, how you support data students, I guess, for people who don't know what the tutor actually does.
Yeah, sure. So about being a tutor, I think the main responsibility is being very responsive when students reach out to you. Our main thing is actually looking through student submissions, returning feedback, and basically approving or not approving homework. This would be put in very simple words. But this is I think from my point of view, this is a very simple way of looking at it. I think it's sort of like the day-to-day support you need whenever you don't understand something. I always personally encourage my students to reach out to me before they actually submit a homework and ask me questions, and just come up to me, drop me a line whenever there's something in a content or in a task exercise they didn't understand. And this creates, a sort of a communication that makes them feel safe and also keeps them accountable, which is very important with online programs. And to me, this is a part of the responsibility as a tutor. And the other main thing is, of course, whenever you see that someone hasn't really achieved 100% of their submission, to really make sure that you pick an individual approach to explain to them why it's wrong, while not really giving the right answer at the same time, directing them to where to look to get the right answer, and generally also be very supportive the entire time, because it could be challenging studying online, and also not meeting the person face to face is also, for some people, it's quite a transition at some point. So I think just being supportive and providing lots of feedback, detailed feedback, and I think this is the main thing about being a tutor.
For sure. I mean, yeah, and like you said, it's so much more than just marking the work. It's also supporting them through the course. And maybe Humera, you could also elaborate on the mentor role a little more. I know the mentor-tutor role is quite different. So even though you provide support, it's done in quite a different way. So maybe you could talk as well about, what you do as a mentor and how you support your students as well.
Yeah, I think one of the most important responsibilities of a mentor is actually related to this fact of CareerFoundry, that we help our students be job ready when they get out of the course. And as a mentor, one of the most important things that I have to take care of is to provide one-on-one guidance to my students and guide them on everything which is industry related. So we want to make sure that the student gets job market ready once they get out of this course. And there are two basic elements where we actually interact. So I say elements, but each of them is in itself a thorough process. So one of them is, as Jana mentioned, that they take on exercises and homeworks, which they do throughout the course. So at the end of every course, a collection of these exercises form an achievement. And as a mentor, we give them a feedback on the achievement they submit, or what you'll submit. And this achievement submission is kind of reviewed, and a review is given in the form of a video feedback, so that it covers each and every aspect. And it's contrary to what you have been so far with your tutor on a text-based communication, this one is going to be a video communication, so you actually see your mentor giving you your feedback. But this is actually the second part, once the course is ending and you get the achievement. The other part, which goes on throughout the course, is actually interacting with your mentor and getting guidance on a day-to-day basis. So so we arrange calls. So as a student, you get a kind of an unlimited access. So it's a limit, but it's so huge, like 99 or 100 calls for
no one ever reaches the limit.
No one ever reaches that. So I would call it an unlimited supply of calls that you can arrange with your mentor, and then talk about literally everything. Like really, if you are curious about how the course looks like, how you can transition, if you have any anxiety about if is this the right program for you, you talk to your mentor. If you feel like you are stuck with some part of your assignments, you can talk to your tutor and you can talk to your mentor about it. If you feel is the industry open enough for you, you talk to your mentor about it. So how, if you get stuck about preparing your CV or presenting something, or like any topic which you think you can which can help you in any way in getting your job portfolio better and better, your mentor is right there. And actually very nice enough, we have prepared kind of a proper guidelines on how the first call should look like. We prefer that this first call takes place as soon as you join the course, so that it not only breaks the ice but also helps us means like you and the mentor to chalk out how we want to proceed further, how frequently we want to work together, and so on and so forth. The process for reaching out your mentor is that once you are logged in, you can access the mentor's calendar, and you can actually book a call whenever you see the free slots that they have, and every mentor has their free slots available slots in the calendar, which you can book latest 48 hours in advance. So I would say a mentor-tutor pair basically gets you ready for the market. So once you are done with this course, not only your concepts are clear theoretically, mathematically, technically, but your mindset is also ready for that.
Exactly. And I guess, it's interesting to note that obviously we have students who are, what we'd call career changers. So people who have, no prior knowledge of the industry at all, like maybe, just wanting to get into data. And then we also have people who are more upskilling, and people who are transferring certain skills into maybe the industry of data. So maybe you could also elaborate a bit on how you like adapt your teaching style for these particular students. Obviously everyone comes with such a wide, different range of knowledge and understanding. So how do you adapt your teaching style to match your individual students?
No, that's true. I think, as I just said, that I am a teacher at heart. So my aim and goal is actually to see them succeed, and my desire is that they just ace whatever they are doing. And this actually heavily depends on of how I interact with them. So and every person is different. What I have noticed since coming from an academic background and teaching university students, what I have noticed is that um, you can't underestimate the importance of being a nice and a kind person and an encouraging person. So this is something which never changes, which should never change. Always being nice to them. But having said that, setting up standards and encouraging your students to meet those standards is actually equally, sometimes even more important. These two things never change. So you would find me a nice mentor, somebody you can openly talk to. But if your assignments are not up to the mark, you won't get through that. And I can say that for Dana as well, because I have worked with her, and yeah, being nice doesn't mean that you would get through with substandard work. And I think these two things are very important. The rest actually is adaptable. So I talk to the people that, hey, how much pushy do you want me to be? Do you want me to follow up with you regularly every week that how's your assignment going? How's your assignment going? Or do you want me to just let you work at your own pace? And so we find out what works individually with each student. In my first call, we speak about what's going to be their schedule of working. So, for example, one student said that he likes to read the assignment one day prior to when he actually intends to work on it. So then there was another one who would never respond back. So talking to these two people was a totally different way of interaction. For one, I had to just encourage him doing what he was doing. For the other one, I needed to have some more follow up if they needed anything. And I think the bottom line is not to be and I can be there for them if they need anything. And I think the bottom line is to give everyone their space and the trust that there is somebody to fall back on. And whatever changes, these things never change. Empathy and standard, meeting the standards, these are
For sure.
something that they're trying
I mean,
or
and
taking.
it is the nice part of the course that it is more flexible. It's like, you have 5 to 8 months to finish the course. It's not like going to university where you have to do something by a certain amount, of time. So you've got that freedom to reach out to your mentor and tutor to get that support when you want it, to book the call when you want it, but then also have that space. And I guess we all
Exactly.
have other lives separate to the doing the course as well, and other responsibilities. So don't forget to ask questions in the chat, because we'll definitely get to that later. So please feel free to ask whatever you want about the industry, or specific questions for either Dana or Humera. I guess this follows on nicely to another question that I had about, I guess there's always the question of, is it better to do distance education, to study online, or do something face-to-face, or go to a university? Obviously, at the moment it's not possible to study face-to-face, but maybe we could talk a little bit about the benefits of doing a boot camp versus going to university to study something like data analytics, because I think there are a lot of pros now to doing it in this context. Do either of you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would like to throw in a few things. As someone who largely studied analytics sort of on their own, I did study a lot of statistics, and I really mean a lot of it in university, but this was really just the foundation, and most of the things that I achieved afterwards, and most of the things that actually got me jobs, were some self-studying online courses. I think back in the day, I started on with Coursera and with introduction to big data. I was coding in R, things that I actually don't do anymore. But I actually quite like the approach, because at least back in the day, this was about 5-6 years ago when I started out, there wasn't really any data program at all in university. So no data degrees, maybe perhaps one, if at all. So at least back then, I didn't have much of a choice. I had to self-educate. And I've actually been tracking, like keeping an eye on different universities offering data programs. And I like to make, the comparison between what you can get from an online course versus what is it that you can study on campus. And then, of course, it's an individual opinion, naturally, but at least to me, it's not really worth it, if I can put it this way, because data is just such a dynamic field. It's developing every day. There are new tools, new approaches, new methodologies, and I think that, first of all, universities can hardly keep up with the pace. This is one thing. And secondly, it's just so dynamic that holding a degree doesn't mean the same in data as it does in other fields. For example, you can't be a doctor if you didn't go to med school, or you can't be a lawyer if you didn't go to law school, and that's natural. But with data, there's just so much you can do differently. People have different concepts of analytics, for example, the difference between a data analyst and a data scientist. No one's really clear about this. So you just kind of have to find your own way into building a portfolio and a skill set that really resonates with what you would like to do. Because very often you might, for example, go to an analyst interview and realize you haven't heard any of this, you haven't done any of this from the requirements job list. And it could be a little bit frustrating, but in the end of the day, really analytics has so many faces that there isn't really one program that can kind of like shape all of this into one, fit for all facet, I would say. So I think online courses really give you the flexibility to shape your own skill set the way you want to shape it. And also, as you pointed out too, with on-campus learning not being on campus anymore, I'm not sure whether it's really worth it, for example, to pay £9,000 for online education that might not actually be fit for your passions and for your own needs. because it's hard for me to believe that you can find a uni program where there's everything that's on it you absolutely like and you totally want to do. It's
for sure. Do you want to add anything to that, Humera?
Yeah, for sure. One more thing which I have noticed, in addition to whatever Dana said, I totally agree, is note that companies these days actually not need degrees. Rather, they are focusing more on your skill set. So companies like Google, Apple, Tesla, they are hiring people based on their skills and not just degrees. So the I must not say the hype of universities, but the importance of universities is kind of being compensated by online learning and getting job ready, especially courses like what we offer at CareerFoundry. We make sure that you are becoming job ready, which means that you not only get the technical skills of the most hot tools which are needed at the moment, and as Dana said, it's changing very fast every day, so you need to be updated, and then you need to have a portfolio that you can show off. You need to have a CV, a LinkedIn profile that catches the eyes of your recruiters out there, your future employers out there. And this is something where the universities actually do not focus on. So, and especially, again, I would repeat that given the pandemic, like enrolling for an on-campus course and not being on campus, you actually miss out all the advantages for which you actually enroll for, and then you are doing an online learning in a worse way than what you could have done if you followed the route. So I
Sorry, it
see
cut
a lot of
out.
pros in this career online.
Sorry, it cut out a little bit for a second.
Is it okay now?
But yes, it's okay. But
Okay,
but yeah, that's
I think I got the point. Yeah,
for sure. And I guess that's what people don't realize as well, is that like you said, that's what you can talk about in the mentor calls. You know, you can go over topics like how to get a job, what you need to do to be ready to get a job. You also work with, the potential of a career specialist in the job prep course as well. So the course gets you job ready in a way that university does not, that's for sure. So I think a lot of people often want to know is there prior knowledge or prior skills that you need to have in order to take the data analytics course? Do you have to have done something at uni or done a previous course, or, even specialized in something before? So, we don't kind of say that isn't necessary. So Dana, what do you think that a student needs to have in order to do the course, or, if anything?
Yeah, I'm definitely the person to answer that question, considering I had zero, and I really mean zero, mathematical background when I started doing this back in the day. There are really two things necessary to have if you want to do that course or any kind of course, and it's just persistence, which means, discipline, doing your homework, reading up, and attention to detail. Like this is it. It's just, as I've said many times, the most mistakes I get in homeworks, about 90% or maybe even 95%, are not because students didn't understand the concepts, because they were too complicated, or they just couldn't grasp them, or they didn't have the capacity to grasp them. It's just purely because of lack of attention. Really, so many mistakes. It's just not reading the question carefully enough, or not paying attention to what exactly the question is asking you, or not finishing the task to the very last step from the directions. These are really the main mistakes. So to me, it really is the case that you can be anyone, you can do anything, you can have zero backgrounds in mathematics or programming or whatever. If you're motivated, and if you're willing to put in the time and have the discipline to persevere through this journey, and you also really pay attention and you're focused, then you're absolutely good to go.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. Does anyone have any other questions? Please make sure you add them to the chat. Did you want to add something, Humera?
I would just, I wanted to add my experience, which was actually the total. So I've been from and was initially very proud of it. But as soon as I started working on data and this data company, I actually had to empty my jar to be able to fill in more information into the jar. What I mean by that is that data is actually in itself so powerful that you find so many low-hanging fruits out of it that you don't need any complicated problem-solving skills to solve problems out of data. And in my company, we used to have a 2.5 program just so that people who are joining the company, we can actually clear out their misconceptions, because they would always come in and think that, hey, to solve this problem, we need a very complicated solution and we need these tool sets and that those skill sets. And no, actually, no. You really need what Dana said, persistence and attention to detail, and like everything is right in front of you. You just the mistake that is to not look to the data, and we really had to cleanse with the hey, you don't get stuff to work on the data. You really get the data itself. You just need to pay attention.
Sorry, it cut out a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I got what you were saying. Anastasia actually asked, is some background in statistics needed? So I feel like you already answered that question, Dana, that
okay, so just to avoid any confusions, in order to work as an analyst, you definitely need a background in statistics. But in order to do the course, no, you don't. This is the point.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, obviously, a lot of people also talk about, you know, I mean, in the context of COVID at the moment, you know, getting work after the course, you know, so if I study this course, you know, how will I get a job? And has the field of kind of data changed since the pandemic has started? So I don't know if you, Humera, want to elaborate on that a bit? Your internet was cutting out a little bit before, but hopefully we'll give it another go.
Okay, so I'll try to be brief and quick with this one. So the industry is changing, but not for negative. It's actually changing positive. So what I have noticed, a few companies are taking a different view on data. They are taking basically offering data analytics as a service, which means that many companies are reluctant now. They're analysts, but they're not. Doesn't mean that they are not using data analysis. Rather, they are outsourcing those data analytics to other companies. So actually, the job market has increased for data scientists and analysts, because now companies are focusing totally on data collection and providing data services to other companies. Because in essence, from scratch to make it use is a comprehensive task. It's difficult, it's time consuming, and it's cost.
Sorry, cut out.
Now in South,
you're back.
they're out.
It cut out a little bit again.
The demand has actually increased.
You might have to, it's not working at the moment. You might have to leave and come back. It might help, Humera. But okay. Okay, she'll be back. It happens. But I mean, some other people were talking about, what the possibilities are for remote work in the questions, and I think that kind of relates to this. I think what Humera was saying was that it's essentially that a lot of companies are looking for data analysts, but maybe more in the context of, consultants and freelance work, because that would be more cost effective. Dana, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, certainly. Well, since I'm a freelancer myself, I can definitely confirm that. I also have lots of friends who work in recruiting, and it just seems that I don't know whether it was because of the pandemic, whether it's a sheer coincidence, but I've been noticing that there are fewer jobs in. Hey, hello back.
You're back.
Yeah. And I've been noticing a fewer positions for in-house analysts, but in the same time there is a booming in freelance jobs. So I feel like people want to be on the safe side where they have someone to do their analytics work, but they're not hired, so that they wouldn't have to fire the person, God forbid, if something happens to the company, if a really bad recession hits. So having freelancers as a company owner is definitely the safe way to go in this case. But I actually think this is a major opportunity, really, because this way you really get to acquire some really valuable experience by working for different companies and different industries, and it also makes you much more flexible. But there was one question about remote work, I think.
So just
This
what
is
are the
from Antonio,
possibilities for remote
and
work?
I just wanted to scratch on this very quickly, that data has always been a very flexible field. So at least ever since I started working in that industry, it's never been not flexible. Remote has always been an option, at least in my experience. So there's never really been any kind of a dogma. You have to be at the office every day. And since the only thing you need is a good laptop to do that job, why not be remote all the time? So, I mean, I'm working remotely 100% of the time.
And how long have you been doing that? Like, just working remotely as a data analyst, basically?
Since March, when I quit my office job.
Nice. So someone also asked, like, what are the skills most demanded by German companies hiring for a data analyst? I mean, I think this is probably, similar, I think, in lots of countries in the EU. I don't know, Humera, if you want to answer that one. Hopefully the internet connection is a bit better, but yeah, what are some of the skills that someone would need?
Okay, I assume you are asking about technical skills. So there are some other non-technical skills which are definitely worth mentioning, which Dana already mentioned in one of the previous questions, is attention to detail. So so many mistakes or many errors that people make when they are working is actually because of lack of attention. And actually some people in their job description do write that should have an eye to detail or attention to detail. Other than that, working knowledge of Excel is good. And you need, if you go ahead, then some kind of table management or data management language is necessary. So it could be SQL, it could be Python or R, more for the processing side. And so Excel can give you a quick overview into data. R or Python would let you go deeper into the data, and something like the visualization, for some tools for visualization. So it could be Tableau or something similar. These are most popularly demanded skills which you see in the job applications or job descriptions.
I mean, and so many of these things you can also teach yourself these days. I mean, not everything, but there's so much more that you can learn separate to just the course as well. Like there's all kinds of free courses, like opportunities to learn, like information online. So obviously the course can't give you everything, but it gives you a pretty good, basis to start. Okay, I'm just
actually a combination of, for example, this course with having some kind of freelance projects. it would be an ideal combination to prepare yourself, or getting enrolled in Kaggle, getting a account in Kaggle and trying to do their competitions, which are of course free. You can actually build upon your skills in that regard.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Okay, I'm just having a look at some more of these questions. I think we've covered a few of them. I mean, this is more just about the course itself. I'm guessing maybe it came from a student, but you know, do you have any advice on how to manage the course and a full-time job at the same time? So I know that there, like we said, you know, there's a lot of people that have responsibilities outside of the course. So could you elaborate on this? I don't know, either Dana or Humera, like what advice would you give a student
Dana,
that
you
is?
want to go first?
Yeah, I find that what helps mostly is, especially when I have students doing the immersion program and I see that they're sort of struggling with their submissions, I would perhaps suggest to them that we set a few days, like 1 day a week or 2 days a week for their submissions. And not that it makes so much of a difference, but this way they feel that they're accountable. They know that I'll be waiting for a submission. So it makes it harder for them to sort of flinch out on me in a way. But I think this is something that comes as a surrogate for discipline. I think this is the main part that's really important. You just have to make yourself do it, because you're not always going to come home from work and really feel like sitting down and reading up on a huge exercise on SQL. I mean, let's be honest, especially if you had a really long and harsh day at work, that's not going to be the case. So sometimes you have to make yourself do it. There's the truth. But then you feel so much better. It's kind of like with working out.
Yeah, right.
But I kind of like
Exactly, and
yeah.
exactly, yeah. I would just say that I encourage them to do exactly the same. That okay, I'm here. I'm watching your progress. I keep reminding them that okay, I am watching your progress, and I can see this is something that you are doing good, and this is something which you are struggling. And if you want to talk, we can talk it out. And one of the suggestions from one of my students, which I really liked, was, I mentioned this earlier as well. He actually would study the task and the assignment one day before he has actually to do it, and then he would sleep over it, and the next day he would then it would somehow like come to him. It really depends on what is your own learning style, but being disciplined actually helps. I think we are so flexible that you don't have strict deadlines. This is good in a way because it gives you the flexibility whenever you want to work, study. If there is a particularly busy week at work, or there is something, you are on vacation and you can't study, you can take a week off. If you have the capacity for the flexible program, you have that. But being disciplined is actually the key.
For sure.
Being accountable is actually the key. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, it's so easy to just sort of slip out of your routine of getting into the course, and then once you leave it aside for, I would say, more than a week and a half, it gets very hard to get back on track because you've already forgotten what you're doing. Perhaps there was a reason why you stopped doing it. Maybe you had some problem and you didn't know how to solve it, and then you decided, oh, I'll sleep over it, and then you just sort of slip out of having the routine, and then you have this little sense of frustration that there was some kind of an obstacle and you don't want to get back to it. This is the moment to really make yourself get back to it.
For sure. And I mean, every task kind of builds on the last one. So if you then stop for a little while, it's harder and harder to get back into it. But I also like what you said about, you kind of hold students accountable. And I also think that organically happens when students have a good relationship with their mentor and tutor. They almost feel more responsible to want to hand work in, like
Yes.
they know that someone's waiting, on the other side of the computer, waiting for them to hand in work and really rooting for them. So I always like to see that like kind of relationship between student and mentor and tutor, and how that also encourages students to, gives them, I guess, a little bit of that motivation to hand something in.
Yeah. Well, I just have to say, actually, some people really don't need that. Some people are just so self-driven. in my experience, maybe Humera can agree to that or not. I think that the career changes are most motivated.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they have a lot to lose. They have a lot to lose. You know, I think if you're paying for this course and you're making a big jump, a big decision for your life, I think it's a brave decision, but I think you have a lot more to lose. So I think that also drives some people to really want to keep going, you know, get to the end, because they can see the possibilities and the opportunities that kind of await on the other side.
Yeah.
True.
So someone else also asked about so they said, you mentioned the varying conceptions of the positions of data analytics. So I think, Dana, you were talking about that, you know, there's so many different things you can do within the industry. I guess data analytics is only even a small part of it in itself. But they said, could you explain how you consider a data analyst versus a data scientist? But I guess, you know, maybe you could also elaborate and just talk about the kind of all the array of different positions and, you know, titles and things you can do in the industry.
Yeah, what I was actually referring to when I mentioned this a while ago was that you can read up that there is a job opening for a data analyst, and it could mean something completely different in each and every company. And here is a simple example. For example, I've been to interviews for data analysts where, for example, the main responsibilities would have been reporting and visualizations and maybe Tableau dashboards. And this would be literally a case of getting CSV files, like Excel files, analyzing their content in, you know, like a very rudimentary way, and then preparing reports for senior stakeholders, and then uploading these data to some dashboards and creating visualizations. In the same time, I've also been to data analyst interviews, and I've even worked at a company like this where this actually did include machine learning as well. So in your mind, or at least, you know, the common conception is that analysts handle, you know, the more mundane tasks, if you could call it this way, you know, like more data cleaning, pre-processing, reporting, visualizations, and then data scientists handle, you know, the hard stuff like predictive modeling and entire like machine learning pipelines and all of this. And in my opinion, there is some truth to that, but I think the concepts are so mixed up by now that you never really know what people are looking for until you go to an interview.
And I think that also, like, I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think if you're going to work in-house at a company, it depends how big the company is, you know, as to what tasks you're going to be doing and what your responsibilities are. You know, if it is a bigger company, there's going to be more people that are specialized in certain areas. Whereas if you're working for a smaller company, you might take on, you know, I guess like a few different areas of responsibility as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. If you work in a small company, your tasks are going to be much more diverse, that's for sure. And also, if you work in a big company, there is a chance that you have to do more or less the same things. Although that's also not to be taken for granted, because in my last job, which was at a corporation, I actually went in to be a data modeler, so developing, you know, machine learning models. And I somehow, I don't know, I ended up being a data engineer. I don't know how that happened. So you just never know, really. You never know. You have to keep an open mind towards everything. But I wanted to actually ask Humera, as you know, she's been in the industry much longer than me. Can you draw a straight line between data analysts and data scientists, in your opinion? What are the major differences?
Drawing a straight line is actually not possible. So it's an entangled kind of a chain. But yes, data analyst and data science are the two very, very close to each other fields. And I would say what you said, I would actually like to repeat it. So data analyst is more related to the mundane tasks of cleaning the data, preparing it a little bit so that it can be used for proper visualization and reporting. And data science is more focusing on making sense out of the data and even making predictions which you cannot see right at the first glance. So data science, can you hear me properly?
Yeah.
It's
All
all
good.
good.
Yeah. So data scientists need more technical knowledge and more technical tools like programming in Python or stuff like that to make things work. One thing which is also important is the titles that are given to different data analysts is different as well. For example, if your task is to look at the quality of data for a system, you might be referred to as a quality analyst. Or if you are talking about business related stuff, defining the business requirements and making the business work, you could be referred to as business analyst and not a
Yeah.
data analyst right away. So some different companies call them different names in this regard as well. Data engineering, on the other hand, is like really totally different. I'm uh, uh, yeah, I'm surprised that you started with a data modeler and then ended up being a data engineer. Data engineer, I would say, is totally somebody who is preparing the infrastructure so that others can actually work on it. Providing deployment. So the tools used for data engineering are totally different. For data science and analysis, it's kind of a big overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally true about data engineering. But here is once again an example about how much these concepts and titles vary. I wasn't actually preparing data for deployment. I was actually pre-processing and then cleaning and wrangling and also sometimes doing the modeling as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really complicated. But as everything we've said so far just sounded very much like, oh, it's very complicated and there is no straight answer. I'd like to give a practical advice to anyone who's looking for a job. Ignore the title on a job ad would be my first go-to tip, and then just really focus on the parts with the requirements and mainly what you'll be doing. I know you always have these requirements in job ads. You need to have like 3 years of, I don't know, Python doing, or you need to be an Excel expert. These things are actually not always as they're written down, because sometimes companies will just post an ad with their most perfect candidate from heaven described, and very often it's not realistic. So don't even pay so much attention to that. Just look at the part where they say your responsibilities will be, and then just really comb through that. Try to imagine what it really means, what tools you could use to do that, whether you can do that, are you qualified to do that, and based on this decide whether to apply for a job or not. This would be my tip.
And I mean, someone said earlier, like, what does a data analyst actually do on a daily basis? I think we've kind of covered it a bit, but if you could kind of say in a few sentences, like, what the kind of daily jobs are or tasks are for a data analyst, what would you say?
Dana, you want to go?
Yeah, I would say if you're a one-man show, so if you, let's say, no, actually, not if you're not one-man show. In any case, if you're an analyst, 80% of your time is going to be data cleaning. About 15% of the rest of the time is going to be Googling what to do with the things you don't know how to do. And the other 5% is going to be the real fun stuff.
That's true, because data cleaning means when you collect data, maybe you have some missing data, or you have data which doesn't make sense. Maybe there was some data coming because of some measurements or some surveys, and the units don't match, and there could be several reasons why we would need data cleanup, and that actually is the most important task, which means you are either using something like a tool where you are being able to process data by looking at it, like an Excel, or if it's bigger, then you would need a programming language to do that.
Yeah.
But mostly it would be cleaning up and making sense out of the data. And as I said in the beginning, that I was very proud of my machine learning skills when I joined this data company, and I really never had to use them, because most of the time it's looking into the data, cleaning it up, and data actually has most of the information right away, and you just need to see how you can make sense out of it.
Yeah.
And also answering one of the previous questions where somebody asked how much stats do you need. Yeah, you need to add things up. You need to know how to calculate the mean of or average of things, find the maximum or minimum from a given column. And yeah, these cleaning up and all this kind of basic stuff is actually the most part that helps you go through what you are doing. And ultimately preparing reports. I think one of the important tasks is to present your findings in a very nice way. By nice, I mean something which is understandable by the people. So which chart should I use? Like, should I use a pie chart, or a bar graph makes more sense, or a line chart makes more sense? And which numbers should I actually send into the report, and how do I present it in such a way so that it makes more sense? So these are kind of things like visualization and presentation. This is also part of our day-to-day work life.
Oh, for sure.
Because I guess your findings can drive like strategies and
Exactly.
decision making and things like that. So you have to know how to present at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay, so I mean, we also covered this, but maybe also in a few sentences, you could say what tools you use as a data analyst, and maybe also what tools we cover in the course.
We started, so in my job, I primarily needed Excel very rarely, because it was big data and Excel can't support very, very huge files. So one course on, but you cannot forego the importance of Excel in your data analyst life. So we cover Excel very much in detail in the Introduction to Data Analytics course. And in our real life, I have used a lot of Python. So you need at least one programming language where you can process data. It could be Python, it could be R, it could be even an SQL-like database. And these three we actually cover in our course. And in addition, finally, we need some kind of visualization tool. And in the course, we cover the Tableau as a visualization tool. So in the course, we actually cover all the components that are needed for end-to-end implementing the pipeline. From Excel to Python and R to Tableau, basically it gets you go through the whole pipeline. Am I missing anything, Dana?
No, I don't think so. I think, we have everything. I would say personally, Excel is definitely a must. I mean, although I work with Python most of the time, I like it best. It's just very versatile, quite easy to use, especially for beginners, I would say, unlike R, which I personally found to be quite difficult for beginners. But I've always used Excel, even alongside Python. I kind of like mixing stuff up and, just picking which tool is best for which job, because sometimes something that takes 10 seconds in Excel takes like 2 minutes in Python. And then, of course, you're going to choose Excel unless you're handling big data, as you said, Humera. So, but yeah, in terms of what is covered in the course, pretty much all of this, just except R. We're not covering R, we're covering Python. Actually, exactly for the reason that it's very beginner friendly and very easy to get into.
And just in terms about getting into the industry, do you think that companies are willing to hire people who are more junior or who have just finished a course, or hire someone with not that much or no experience at all? Like, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, someone else also asked the question of, do you have a website for data projects? And I imagine that doing projects is something that you can do in your own time to, I guess, build those skills, and something that you can also use when you're in the recruitment process and things like that. But yeah, do you think that companies are willing and open to hiring people that are more junior?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You go ahead, Dana.
I just wanted to say, in my entire industry experience, people genuinely don't really care about hiring juniors. It's the focus is much more on can you think or can you not think. So this means that interviews for data positions are very, very often also containing some kind of a test. It doesn't mean that you have to code in Python like a king. It's very often even just a logical test, just some tasks in basic mathematics or just pure logic. And it doesn't matter what your background is really.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say, as a very general tip, sorry to interrupt, if you don't have any experience in terms of professional experience and you want to get on the job market, my recommendation would be do a good course, some kind of a good course. Write down ideas about topics that you find particularly interesting, that you find interesting, not that you think might be interesting for somebody else. Find the right data for this, and then just do your own project. Dig around the data a little bit in whatever tool you want. Create a GitHub account and upload your work there. And then whenever you apply for a job, just insert a link to your GitHub profile. And this way you show your potential new employer that you might not have been hired by somebody else yet, but you're passionate, you're serious, you actually find this interesting, you want to do it, and it's the result of your abilities is right in that website.
True, totally agree. That's a very good way to impress your future employer. And personally, I have noticed that startups are actually very open to hiring newbies and fresh graduates, or even people with mostly skills, because they have this mindset of they are themselves. When you have a startup, they have this mindset of growth actually, and this is reflected in the employees that they are hiring as well. So the chance of being hired with them is more, because they also would like people who would have the right mindset and then train and grow along with them. So the chances of growth increases there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I like what you said as well, Dana. I do think when people apply skills to an area that they're actually interested in and passionate in, it's going to come across as well. And then if they have to talk about that as a project in the context of, interviewing, you're going to see someone's interest and passion come through as well, which is important.
And I would say that this is one of the first exercises that we have in the course as well. Identify your passion and then think about that. And we have noticed that people, when they talk about their passionate field, they really do a much better job than when it's just any data project.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For sure. Okay, so we're nearly at the end. I'll pick one more question. And so someone said, if I get specialized in data, could I further into cyber security?
That's a tough one.
Sorry, just to end off with the hardest question.
I have a feeling that cybersecurity is much more than data. It's more about the encryption algorithms that you would have, and the encryption, the cryptography, and all that kind of complicated encoding schemes and data transmission. I have a feeling that data analytics might not be the right prereq to come to data cyber security. It's more algorithm based.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So do either of you have any kind of last comments or anything you want to add before we wrap up the session?
Humera, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. And I'll be very brief. Like, if you are looking for an interesting and a challenging field, data would be for you, because data is not just data. Data is whatever you make out of it.
Yeah. This was so well said. It really is a conclusion, also in resonance to what Humera said. You don't need to be a math pro or a programming pro or any kind of pro in order to get data. I think it just, if you're curious and you like digging for answers and asking questions, then data is for you. But if you're someone who can't keep their attention at something for longer than 5 minutes, then don't do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you both so much for being here today, for answering all these questions. It's been really insightful also for me. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And then, yeah, the course is now available in Europe. You know, previously it was only available in the States and in the UK. So now the full program is available to everyone in the EU, which is super exciting. So, of course, if you have any questions, look at the website. And I think as well, you can follow any of us on LinkedIn if that is of interest to you. So, and thank you again for all your questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight.
Thank you.
It was
Bye.
nice talking to you. Bye.